Happy One Wheel Wednesday, everybody. I hope you're doing well wherever you're watching. Wherever you are posted up right now at the job site watching, we are so honored to have you as a viewer today. We have a great guest in here. He's in the green room, where we call it. He's waiting for us to introduce him. We do have Nico coming in, but we have live in the studio today, we have one of our normal cast of characters. We have Miss Lily Arnold to my left today, wearing a Windman hoodie.
Yes, I am. You can't really tell, but yeah, I love this hoodie. It's good for winters in Minnesota.
It's just all around great hoodie and great trail system, man. One of the first premier trail systems that are fully accepting to One Wheels, which is great. You walk up onto their trailheads and it says One Wheels are walking. We love that place. Love the race there. Excited that it's a part of Dirt Surfers 3, the crown, if you would, of it. So we're excited. I'm trying to think of the, like a
crown jewel.
No, I can't remember. Nonetheless, we also have, very rarely does he get to perch up on his mother's desk, but today we got the legend.
The One Wheel Ghost.
What's up, everybody?
Wait, the legend of the Wheel Ghost.
Oh, is that his new name today?
How do you choose?
He changes his name. Yeah, what makes you? You used to be the...
So creatively chosen.
Okay.
Tell us.
I don't actually have a good reason why I did it. It just kind of sounded catchy, so...
Yeah, but you used to be... What was he? You used to be like the goat of one-wheeling or something? It's always pushing the I'm the best of the best kind of situation.
Sure.
So you better podium first place this year to earn all these your given title. First, your name legend. Second, the ones you call yourself, right?
Yeah, okay. I'll be honest. I did, the name came from I'm so fast they can't see me.
Is that a movie?
No. I thought I was like, I'm so fast they don't even see me going by.
Yeah,
that's
why.
I love the confidence.
That's why I put it.
That's my oldest son right there. Proud to call him my son. Privileged to have him at the tech tables today. We have the one and only Historic doing all of the switching of the camera angles, and then we have Epic doing all sound. And when we get Nico in here, he's doing all the switching of Nico and stuff. So full studio, and a great topic today. Is Vesc better than One Wheel now? With Nico, that's the question. Has Vesc already gone further in the just components or in the software than One Wheel GTS, or are they still apples to apples? We're going to unpack it with somebody way more knowledgeable than me. That's why we have Nico in here. I know enough to get myself in trouble to make you guys upset in the chat most of the time. And so today we thought we'd bring in a professional. Before we do, we have, if some of you have already caught onto this box, I'm stoked about this. This has been one thing that I have it's become a habit. You know, like you wake up, what's one of the first things you do, Lil, when you wake up every day?
I'll put on my robe, go to the bathroom.
That's 2, 3.
Drink coffee.
Okay, there are your 3 things. The legend, what are the first 3 things you do in the morning? You gave us like 7. I just need 3.
I love mornings.
First 3 things you do when you wake up.
Actually, it's usually changes, but I drink water first.
That's the first thing you do.
You drink water before you go to the bathroom? Oh, sure.
So I just
right by
get water
your bed, you just get a drink.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the next thing? Go to the bathroom?
Put my slippers on.
Oh, I got money because I'm pregnant.
You got what?
I got money for being pregnant.
Oh yeah, Lily. How long? How long are you?
Tyler, that's so funny. I should get pregnant more often.
Well, you gotta wait at least
I'm just
10
kidding.
months.
That's hilarious. So thank you so much, Tyler.
I think that the amount that you're getting here, $19.99. The cost of being pregnant long term isn't affordable. You know?
I'll take it. That was so kind.
Thank you. Very generous, very kind.
Thank
Lily
you.
is in the second trimester for all of those that know what that means. Okay, anyways. So what I have had as a cycle for me for a while here is I'd wake up, and after I do my normal routines, I was like wake up, go to the bathroom, brush my teeth. Those are the first things I do. I would go to www.thefloatlife.com.
I didn't know if you wanted me to finish that.
No. I put a dramatic pause there for a second but I would always see. Oh wait. Oh, while I slept, did they update and do they have the N52 5-inch hub available? Because every time I go there, it's out of stock. And I got to be honest with you. The other day, I got on there and it was not out of stock. I thought it was a joke. I was dreaming, and so I put into my cart immediately. I put in the N52 magnets 5-inch hub. It has to be matte black because I like the murdered out look with the Pioneer because that is one of my favorite meaty, chunky. I think it's all around one of the best tires for on-road, off-road, trails, snow, you name it. Stoked to try it. Not tried it in the 5-inch profile, but it is here. I like how even the float life, I did a review on the 6.5. I think that's the size of that one. But even the little drawings of the ice and snow sickles on the side or icicles, wonderful. Can't wait to slap in the GTS stator into this thing and give it a whirl. I'm hoping for an amazing race season because of that. To the team out there in California that produces things like the 5-inch hub, thank you for your creativity. Jeff and team, thank you for helping get that to here in a manner that is quick and affordable. You guys are a great team. Now, that said, let's get to one of the coworkers out there in California. He is a transplant all the way from, I don't say California. He moved to California from Ohio. He's reminding you that with a little logo on his hoodie today, guys. This is one of the fastest, craziest, wildest man on a one wheel that I have met. He is lighter than a feather, but he stings like a bee, baby. He will shred you to bits and pieces the way he rides his one wheel. He's not afraid to send it. He flies through the air. When he takes off, it's silent, and you just hear until he lands his one wheel on the ground and kicks your butt to the finish line. It is the only one I know called Nico. Nico, how are we doing today? Welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? I'm so stoked I got 3 of those intros now.
Yeah, I love that he knows. There's almost 60 people tuning in for you, Nico.
In. They probably were like, stop chalking, Scott, and get Nico on here.
Wait, can I say something? I've been waiting.
Wait, you've always...
I've been waiting for Nico to come on because, Nico, do you know that your home state is trending in slang?
Oh, I know. I'm very aware.
How do you feel about that? Basically, like when kids call something Ohio is bad. Like, you know.
Yeah, it's generally pretty bad.
How do you feel about that?
Ohio Riz is not what you want to have.
Yeah, Ohio Riz. That's funny. I work with students, so I'm always trying to keep learning, and I was like, I gotta hear what someone from Ohio.
It's tough to keep up. It's gotten to the point that a lot of the slang is like not even meant to mean anything. Like the humor in it is that it means nothing.
Right. Like skibbity.
Well, you know,
what?
That's not even slang.
But
it
is.
So you use the word
to
describe something that's bad. It's so Ohio.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's the deal. Ohio has produced some great songs over the decades. If you go back into the early 2000s.
Tyler put Ohio's for Lovers.
Yeah, come on. Go put that one on Spotify or your Apple Music. It's a decent song. I'm trying to think of other songs that had Ohio in it back in the early 2000s. So, you know, I guess it's a cycle of Ohio for Lovers. Great song. Now everything's so Ohio. Do you
that's interesting.
You being a local, are you shamed by that, or you just chuckle going, oh, well, it's Ohio?
I mean, I've always been not the biggest fan of Ohio, so it's neither here nor there for me.
Yeah.
But.
Now, Holly and I lived there for 8 years, just outside Columbus, and I learned a couple things that most people are not from Ohio. They their family were transplanted from Kentucky because they're like, well,
yeah.
Kentucky's worse than Ohio in their opinion, so let's move to Ohio. It's just over the river. So then we've upgraded states. It's
a more refined Kentucky.
Yeah,
wow.
It is. We didn't bring you on here today to talk about Ohio.
I had to just bring it up.
Yeah, that's great. Way to keep us trending.
Yeah.
Being we have a real true life Ohioan in our midst, so we're
flesh.
Grateful to have you here.
True life,
real. No, we got it. We probably should. We got you in here on the topic of Vesc, but the thumbnail we're using, I believe people already are going, wait, when you look at the board, because that's where your eyes ultimately go, because we're talking about Vesc, you're riding a GTS. Look at this footage, everybody.
Yeah.
Look at this. We caught it.
And also, is that like a logo that was made for your name? Like, that looks legit.
It is, yeah. It's based off of like the Vesc logo, but just stylized with my name.
Nice.
And I've got a custom set of rails with that logo, like laser etched onto them. That's pretty
sick.
sweet.
Yeah,
Wait,
sweet.
Is that airplane photoshopped?
I don't know.
Come on,
I've
that's
never noticed.
insane.
I've
Are you
never noticed the
serious?
airplane.
Hey, full
That looks like
Might
a
be
that looks like a
legit.
military
Hey,
jet.
full disclosure, I put that there because I was like, this dude's flying. Let me
He
put a
said
jet.
it. He
Okay.
said,
I thought
I
it was
never
real.
I
noticed
do
thought
that
not
it was
plane.
remember
real.
that plane.
That looks so awesome.
No, straight up, I put it in there. I thought it would be funny. If you caught it, I thought you'd laugh. And I was like, this
I would
dude.
have not caught it.
That's hilarious.
Oh, that's so great. I really, in Photoshop, I went to the AI generator and I was like, put a jet flying in there. And I put the area where I wanted it and it put that. I was like, that's sweet.
I
Someone
did think the
says
perspective was a little off. Like
It's
the plane's
ginormous.
at
Like,
a
it feels
weird
like you're way
angle
up there.
it looks legit.
You know what I mean? It looks
I
like
like
either the
it.
jet's really down close to Earth or you're way up in the air. And I thought, dude, you're sending it, so why not? So, I thought it was great.
Someone is saying that they are currently buying your bumpers from Float Life.
It's the best colorway, black and red. Can't go wrong.
You can't, but
Agreed.
that's what those pictures are for. Look, he's even pointing to his hoodie
Black
slash.
and
Black and
red.
red, baby.
Yeah,
Go
I
Bearcat.
like those colors. That's my favorite look. Black and red look so good. But that whole picture. Both those pictures are from your bumper set.
Yeah.
So
So that's also one of the. I have not ridden the GTS in a long, long time.
Since that picture?
To be honest, I've ridden a bit since that picture for sure, but I'm still keeping my hands on my GTS. Not for the main race season, but I've been hearing some rumors about potential ways they might shake up Race for the Rail and how you can qualify for it.
Yep.
And if there's a way to if they have a last second qualifier where you show up to Race for the Rail and that weekend they have 1 or 2 wild card slots where you do a time qualifier or something like that, I'd totally be down for that.
You jump on the GTS.
Just in case of that kind of possibility, I'm holding on to my GTS for now.
Oh, and rightfully so. A guy in your position, I also think it's not bad as you create. Is it safe to say you're one of the main contributors to the Vesc community on creating the software? And again, I don't really know how to say it, or writing profiles and stuff. Is that safe to say about you, Nico? I know there's a handful that are.
Yeah, that's what it's absolutely a collaborative effort. And honestly, in the last 2 years or so, year and a half or so, I haven't been too involved. I still work on my own extra features I tack on here and there.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's been a couple other contributors that have really been focused on contributing to it's what's called the float package. It's basically the extension to Vesc that lets you ride it as a one wheel.
Okay.
I've mostly been focused on other projects. Right now I've been focused on actually making the setup process for Vesc, the initial setup before you ride it, lowering that barrier of entry, making that a lot easier, more foolproof.
And I think people applaud that because I do think, as I've always said, the barrier of entry of Vesc, when you're comparing it to one wheel out of the box, hands down, so user friendly, so easy, peace of mind. Vesc, the barrier is bigger when you're comparing to one wheel, and so so if you can bring down that wall to it's almost plug and play, boy, I could see that turn. Where people start going, this is a real option. I still think, until somebody's creating I can purchase everything put together, I think that's another barrier of entry, is that there's still some technical setup. I like how Maker PEV puts the warning essentially on their website about that. Hey, this is still DIY. Right? Do you think
what's nice is there are a number of options out there now that are some you can consider basically plug and play. Some are there are 2 options now for basically fully assembled boards, or at least nearly fully assembled, because with the float wheel ADV2, that's all software configured now out of the box. So all you have to do is plug in the motor and ride.
Yeah. And it's not hard to plug in the motor.
Yeah, they've improved the on the ADV2, they changed the motor connector, because the previous one they used, you had to heat it up so it gets soft and you have to squish it in there. It was kind of weird and kind of whack, but the ADV2 is a lot easier of an install process.
Okay.
And then Fungineers, they also sell a DIY kit where they give you all the parts and you basically just put them together. And you have to do the software setup for that. But they are also doing, or at least testing out doing like fully assembled boards for certain customers where they put it all together themselves, tune it themselves, and they just send it to you ready to ride.
Okay, but
so there are more and more options popping up there.
Like, do you know offhand? Because again, trying to compare and contrast. Because I'm sure we're gonna get both audiences, right? I'm a one wheeler brand, Future Motion, I guess I should say. I want to go Vesc because of the advantage you get with Vesc right now. What's the cost of if I was to go get that board you're speaking of, fully complete, almost out of the box? I just turn it on, charge it, and do a couple settings. Do you know what that costs?
Yeah, so obviously it's a bunch of different ways you can go about it, and if you're willing to get DIY, you can get a lot cheaper with it.
Yes.
But the good examples are like that Fungineers kit, our fully assembled board. I believe they're selling it for $2,200.
Okay.
So it's about the same price as the recurve version of the XR Classic.
Yep.
But rather than the XR Classic is 18S2P, which is like 75 volts. It's the same voltage as a GT, just less range.
Yep.
This board that Fungineers is selling, the X7, that's 84 volts, 20S2P. So it's essentially a slightly spec'd up version of the XR Classic, but on Vesc. It's ready to ride. So it's honestly like it's a pretty good sell. It's not like you're paying a higher price just because it's Vesc or something like that.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot more like cheaper and cheaper options coming out.
Right.
And then even on, go on.
No, I was just going to say, but as you alluded to earlier, the cheaper you get, it's not quality, it's more of you are assembling it versus it's coming together. So there's why it gets cheaper, right? Is like if you own some of it, if you own some of the product already, like rails and a hub, it all gets cheaper with those things, right? It's I like how we can at least have some apples to apples where it's a XR Classic. It's comparable. I think I asked this off for everyone knows this at home. I asked this off. I guess when we were offline before we went live, I asked Nico this question. I'm going to ask him again because I wanted to give him a few minutes to figure out how to explain this. If Onewheel's flagship product, and it's the most spec'd out to date, at what is today, the 6th or something of February 2025, if their GTS is fully spec'd out, that's the standard, you go read. Where are we at in the Vesc compared to that? Are we double power, double range, or are we just mildly, bit like what you explained with the XRC to what we could have a fully put together assembled board? We're just a couple voltages more. Where are we at when you're comparing the best of the best from Future Motion to Vesc? And then I'm going to add an addition to the question for you, Nico. Cost-wise, what is the GTS? Is it 2,800 or something like that?
For stock.
It's I forgot it's reduced now. Stock it's 2,800.
I think it is.
I will double
and
check.
then recurve is 3,200 and rally's 3,500.
I think so. I think so. Yeah. Lily's going to double check that, so I'm not misquoting. But as you're talking on that, we'll get the cost on that.
29.
So it's 29. That's straight rails.
Straight rails. And
okay.
Then do we want to know?
Yeah, I think the recurve goes up $400 potentially.
It's 3,200 and then 3,500 for the rally edition, I believe.
There you go.
But it's a nuanced question because when you're trying to compare power, it's hard to say like 2 times, 4 times more powerful since it's kind of situational. Because the GTS could be like more powerful and especially faster if they wanted it to. There's a lot that they do in the firmware to limit it for a number of reasons. So even if you build a Vesc build that's like the exact same spec as the GTS, you can get a lot more speed out of it. Probably similar torque, but a lot more speed out of it than you normally could.
Well, let's talk about that, Nico. I'm going to interrupt you a lot in this, okay? So hopefully you remember.
That's fine.
Because I want to ask questions along the way, as people will have the same questions. especially somebody, I always think about the person that's clicking this and they're just starting to study Vesc, or they're trying to go, why would I want to do this? Does speed, I mean, I don't know if you're still somebody's gotten faster on a one wheel now, right? Or a Vesc one wheel, right? Than you now. But at one point you were the fastest, right?
Wait, who's faster than Nico?
So I hit 43.2 miles an hour on a 100-volt build. Keep in mind, that was a 100-volt build. The GTS is 113 volts. And the battery is really what limits the speed. A GTS could absolutely hit like near 50 miles an hour, if not more than 50 miles an hour, if they wanted it to.
If it's flat.
I also understand them limiting it in that regard.
So, like, my question on the speed, because, and I preface it with you being at one time the fastest guy. You got a trophy at Dirt Surfers last year for being the fastest currently on one wheel. It's like at some point you're not going that fast. Like that miles per hour. Would you see yourself if you had a board? Would you do that every day on your? Oh, I got to get to 40 miles an hour. I got to get to the grocery store.
Absolutely not. I mean, the great part about it isn't that you can hit those speeds. It's that you have tons of headroom that you don't have to think about it. You can just focus on your riding. And that's really like, for me, that's a lot of the freedom that comes out of these more powerful boards. It's just that you don't have to worry about how fast you're going or anything like that. You can just focus on the actual ride. Especially in a trail racing scenario, we're absolutely getting to the point where like power is not the bottleneck in racing anymore. Like it helps to have that edge in some scenarios, but honestly, like anything more powerful than a GTS is still going to require a better rider to be like that same rider on a GTS.
Can you say that again? Because I think people do think, oh, if I just spec out my board and get the best of the best in a Vesc, I'm going to be able to beat the pros that are like the factory team. I'm just going to be able to get Austin Silva. Can you say what you just said one more time? So if somebody missed it, what did you just say about a fully spec'd out board in the rider?
I mean, all I'll say is like, to go 40 miles an hour on a trail, you have to be able to go 40 miles an hour on the trail. You have to be able to do that, not just the board.
Right.
So, and we're at a stage that's just not really doable, especially there's big motivation for the people organizing these races to specifically pick trails that limit our speed. To keep it more of a fair battle in that regard. No one really wants to race on big, wide straightaways anyways. It's nice to have, turns in there, lots of chunk and tech to naturally limit our speed. And at that point, really suspension is probably going to be the next like big breakthrough that helps us actually ride trails at faster speeds. Until then, I don't really think power is that big of a factor in racing nowadays, as long as you have a board at least as powerful as the GTS.
Again, me, everybody, I thought it was funny. One of the first comments out of the gate today was alternative title, convincing Scott to go Vesc. And, I've always looked at Vesc as the barrier of entry. I told you off of when we were waiting to go live that some of my struggles to anything Vesc is duplicating that 10 times in this home as I take care of all the boards. Because, Legend, who's been on, he's capable, but he's just getting capable of handling his own board and stuff. But now all of a sudden I'm dealing, if I go Vesc all the way, this just would be, to me, it's just the barrier of entry to that is complicated. Shoot, let's throw Lily's board in.
I would say if I was in your boat with that many boards to manage, I would definitely have mostly Future Motion boards and some Vesc boards, just because, that's a lot to manage. Like I said, it is getting better and better. It's getting easier and easier. And it honestly, now it's at a point that it wouldn't be that bad. But when you're talking kids and they have access, like they could download Vesc Tool themselves and mess with all these things. So that would be a handful. That specific situation,
right.
It would be a bit of a handful.
I do think though you could still have one in your fleet to mess with, play with, to be able.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I think people
I know
are
I
wanting
would
to
still
see.
be on one myself.
Yeah.
I would. That's what I could see adding one for me to be even more knowledgeable on a Vesc board. The thing is like just to me, it's still the barrier is. It's like this is hard. It's just a bit more complicated. If somebody presented to me a board that was done, I would write it and mess around with it. But me getting all the parts, I'd rather put in what I just got from the Float Life, this 5-inch hub and stator, all that stuff, because I know how to do all that stuff and work on it. It's some of the other things, putting in other things that I'm not speaking very clearly, Nico, but it's just those things are like, I don't want to go down that road.
Yeah, it is definitely at a point that there are like a good number of like lower barrier of entry ways to get into it, like the GTV kit and everything. It is a controller swap. It's not really that complicated. Like if you're able to install like a Sure Start or something like that, if you're able to get into the controller in the first place, that's really kind of the hard part of it. And then that is also like configured, ready to go from the factory. And if for some reason it wasn't, like I said, we're working on a lot of ways to make that setup process easier. I can actually show you. I've got an app that we're releasing soon that basically you come in here and you select the controller you have. So I'll say, oh, I've got a GTV power kit.
Yeah.
And it'll automatically select your motor that you can change it if you want to. It'll automatically select your battery that you can change it if you want to. And it's got all these other things you can change, but you don't have to. It's out of the way. And then if you do tweak with them, there's like things in there to help you tweak with them a bit more easily. But you basically pick like those 3 components you have, and you can just move on through the process, and it'll set your board up like for you.
Wow.
So it keeps all like the dangerous stuff out of the way. And it should be really nice for just lowering that barrier of entry, because once the board is set up, like obviously there's the tuning aspect, but technically once the board's set up, you can kind of just set it and forget it, never touch it, and never have to think about it being a Vesc again, and you still have a perfectly fine, perfectly great rideable board. So like there's go on
with unlocking more of the power and not having I'm going to use an old school car term, a governor on it, right? There used to be governors on cars in this 80s where, the speed limit or speedometer says 120, but you could never get past 80 miles an hour because it put a governor on it. Yes, your car can do 120, but they put something on there to keep it from doing that. And that's somewhat what you're saying about Onewheel, Future Motion, because they have so many lawsuits that would come their way and all those things. They've got to limit the power so they don't want a bunch of videos of people riding at 45, 50 miles an hour and eating asphalt. That's not good.
Absolutely. If the speed potential is there, people are going to try it. So for that reason, I totally understand them specifically limiting the speed.
Yeah, that's you. You're proof. You and Jeff are a perfect example. You guys wanted to test how fast can we get this thing going, and obviously you guys were geared up. But you always see videos. Man, how many videos have you seen of somebody eating it on some kind of one-wheel device, and they have no helmet on, typically have a beer in one hand, and they're going to try to ride it as fast as they can, right? And they just fall, and it's like that gives the sport a bad look in that's just not the...
Yeah.
That's not
normal. Hey, well, you know what? I have never seen anyone bail on their board over 40 miles an hour. So I think at this point it's proven to be pretty safe.
Yeah. I also think it's a very small selection of humans that are attempting to do that.
No, that was sarcasm for sure.
Yeah.
So we hit 43 miles an hour at 100 volts. GTS is higher voltage, so technically you could go a little faster if they wanted to. And then it was Riley Johnson who has a 126 volt board, and he hit 50 miles an hour on it. So this also goes back to your early question about where we're at right now.
Yeah, we never guessed.
We are now starting to get into 134 volt builds. This is
Oh my
32S 1P. So that's 5 more cells than the 27S 1P of the GTS. And who knows what kind of speeds that's capable of. Again, it's speeds we're not hitting on trails. So all it really means is just you have more and more headroom that you don't have to really think about it, and you can just focus on your actual riding.
Do you think there's a way? Is there a way, Nico, to have that power that you speak of, so that you have the confidence of you can mash on it and it won't buck you off, without like, can you still govern it? Like, is there technology out there, ability to write a code that goes use maximum power of all the cells, but limit the speed? Or is it there's no way a workaround? It's Onewheel has to let the speed go to maximum to get the maximum out of the battery.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's basically, it's a physics thing. Like with the self-balancing vehicle, if you lean forward, that's you requesting more power, and it's either going to give it to you or it won't. So in that regard, it's technically a bit more dangerous that Onewheel like has the GTS go not as fast as it technically can go. But they have pushed back plenty before that anyways. So it's not a major issue. But yeah, with a self-balancing vehicle, the only things you can really do are either warn the user with haptic buzz or pushback, or you can just hard limit it, in which case if they try to push past that, it'll nosedive.
Yeah.
So
I do think I've said this since GTS dropped that it is the safest Onewheel. And I don't mean that the XRC is not safe or the Pint's not safe. It's that there's so much power there that it requires a lot of gusto to get it to buck you off. That's happening rare, more or less. Like, you aren't seeing montages as you saw 5 years ago. Montages of wrecks on Onewheel. You just don't see that as
on
much.
XRs.
Yeah, because that was happening all over the place. It's not happening as much on the GTSs or the Vesc because there's the power there that when you request
you really got to try.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got to really, really hammer it to do it. And so I do think that has been cool to see that they are much safer. Again, oh man, we got a dog showing up. Is that yours?
That's Julian's.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that dog's been at a few races.
Yes, wonderful dog.
He brings
That's
her to
awesome.
Windman, I think.
I love a good office dog.
Yeah, we have a few.
Or like a dentist dog. I went to the dentist the other day. They had 2 dogs there, and I didn't think about which. I'm like, you must be dealing with some hygiene stuff there, but it de-stresses children. I was like, I never would have thought of that.
Makes sense.
Like at airports. Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Just a small, short commercial break
interlude
there. Yeah,
about
interlude.
dogs.
Sorry, I just had to show.
I appreciate it. We're dog fans around here.
I mean, the chat is on fire. We're at 83 people now watching, and we're really like people are contributing their thoughts on Vesc and all that. But one thing people are very excited to hear about is like going to trail off Vesc for a second is the Big Cat tire. Are you testing it? When is it coming out?
I want to know about a Big Cat.
Really want to know.
Look at that.
You're welcome, guys. You're welcome.
Okay, give us the specs.
It's not too much new news. I mean, the specs are so if you watch my Rep Your Set on TFL that came out about a month ago, I really go in depth over what we're going for. This is still just a prototype, but it's a 12 by 6.75 by 6. Basically, it's going to be a little bit taller than the Big Burst, but still short enough. Like it'll still fit in normal BTG rails. It's like as tall as we can get it in those rails. But it's going to be slightly narrower than the Big Burst, which just makes it easier to turn and won't feel as boaty.
Oh yeah.
It'll be easier to initiate turns. But we're also going to have a more defined flat spot in the middle, so you still have like a stable strip to sit on and go full speed straightaways. Because the Big Burst, it really gets its stability out of how wide it is, but it's actually like a gradually rounded tire from edge to edge. So we are able to get this more narrow for like easier turns, but also still maintain that stability. That's the goal. We're still working on prototypes. Hopefully the next prototype is the one. We should get that in like a month or so, I think. But we'll see. I have no release date just because we really don't want to rush it out, and we don't want to we're waiting until it's exactly where we want it to be.
And you can't control when you're telling us you have a month to get the next prototype. That just tells everybody, hey, look, we make a tweak, and we have a month to get the next prototype to go yes. And so if you're on, I don't know what version of that is,
This was the V3, I think, and then we're waiting on the V4.
So just do the math.
It's an extensive process.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be if you get it on the day it shipped to you, that's 1 month, and that day you decide, which I doubt that's what's happening. You're writing this for a couple weeks and then going to go back to me, hey, switch this. So now you're 2 months, 2 weeks, keep doing that, and you're half a year.
Yeah, and once we finally decide, then we have to actually start the production process, which itself takes some time, and then takes the tires a bit to get over here. So I honestly, I don't have enough insight on that part of the production process to know how long that timeline is once we decide. So I can't really give any rough estimate. All I can say is what we say for all of our other products: when it's ready.
Yeah, I think you guys
really don't want to rush out, especially if I'm going to be racing on this thing.
Right.
For sure.
And other people will be racing. I do think that you guys at Float Life have done a really great job at just saying, hey, I don't know. When it comes, versus saying, hey,
no
look out.
No pre-orders or anything.
Yeah, because then what happens is it's you overpromise and underdeliver, so people get irritated with that. Oh, you said 2 weeks, and now it's another 2 weeks. It's like, well, actually, it's not our control. So I appreciate that you guys almost stay ambiguous. I don't really know. And that's why I woke up every day. That's a little bit dramatic, but I was just trying. I wanted a 5-inch hub because I want more of that beefy tire a bit, but I know I'm going down to a 5-inch to get essentially what you're creating with the big cat, right? Is a lot more rubber, going to create more of a suspension through the tire feel. It's not a suspension, but you get that a little bit more of the squish. What helps?
Yeah, it's got pretty similar sidewall to a 5-inch hub tire. Maybe the 5-inch hub tire has just a little bit more sidewall. But what's really nice about the taller diameter is, one, with the taller diameter, it naturally just goes faster. It takes more torque, but it goes faster top speed wise. But then also with the taller tire, when you hit a bump, let's say right here.
Yep.
Normally on a smaller tire, that's closer to right here.
Oh yeah.
So when it's on a more angled part of the tire, it naturally just climbs over that better. Any bumps are gonna feel less jarring, than they would on a shorter tire, just because of that aspect of it. So honestly, it's just really confidence inspiring at speed. If I wasn't racing, I'd probably personally stick with a 5-inch hub. Especially that Pioneer just rides pretty damn amazing. But
I'm stoked
for racing,
on it.
The big tire is my go-to.
I've not done any big tires. I've not even stepped on a board yet with a big tire on it, so I don't know what that feels like. Some of that is because if I like it, then I know, I got to go to different rails and I got to do this to put it all on. Yeah. And I just get sometimes annoyed with that. So ignorance is bliss in that. Like if I don't try it, I don't know what I'm missing out on. And the 5-inch gives some of what I enjoy, and I don't have to go out there and change everything. And so some of that is just my personal preference. But I'm stoked on that. I just know that's kind of a new wave, the big tire gang. And
I think the big tire mostly makes sense for racing or for people that are stuck on 6-inch. Like if you have a Super Flux or Cannon Core motor for Fungineer's build or the ADV, Float Wheel ADV, those are stuck with the 6-inch motor because it's got more copper in there. You can't switch to a 5-inch hub. So the big tire lets you get that bigger sidewall experience still on a 6-inch.
Yeah, I get the idea behind it. I love it. You made mention earlier, and Legend's sitting in here. He's got an interesting dilemma, and that is he really wants to get raced for the rail at some point. He rides a GT. The specs on the GT, it is a GTS motor on WTF rails. For whatever reason, when the big update of when haptic buzz was added, we updated all our GTs, and their boards had the
Re-level.
We had it set to the WTFs and it was level, and obviously most people lost that. For whatever reason, their boards didn't go back to stock level. It stayed at the WTFs angles.
Yeah, so once you re-level it, that's changing it in the controller of what it thinks level is. It completely dumps its memory of what it thought before. So if you've done that and then you update, it actually retains that.
Well, it didn't do that to my board. My board,
that's weird.
It is weird, right? Like our 3 GTs, mine went back to, I couldn't ride WTFs because it was way out of whack. It went back to, and you couldn't. A
lot of people had that happen.
Yeah, you couldn't fix it. Well, theirs stayed, but now we can't refix it either. Like there's no app to get in there and tell it to go to straight rail. So they're forever on WTFs, which they love.
Well, does he like WTFs? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they love it. There's no complaint. Zero complaint. Okay. But this is a man that wants to go to ORL. You know, it's going to be hard to get there on not a GTS or something more of that caliber. So he is on a GT. If he did the conversion kit on that, you know, a 17-year-old guy, I think I saw the other day a drop-in kit is like $600 or something like that.
I think it's like 500. Yeah, around that price range.
Once you slap in the taxes or shipping and stuff, right? I think it was. I was just trying to tell him how much money he needed to do that. Is that advantageous to do to a GT or anyone that's sitting around here? I got a GT. Can I drop that kit in there, and would I be up to the standard of a GTS, or would I still be shy of what a GTS is capable of doing? What's your thoughts on that kit?
Yeah, so it'd be situational. With the kit, you're not going to get more top speed out of the GT. Maybe like a little bit, but generally you don't get more top speed. It's more comfortable to ride a higher speed since you don't have pushback, or you can configure how pushback is.
Right.
But specs-wise, you're not really getting more top speed. What you do get is a lot more unlocked low-end torque. So your torque is going to be like considerably more than the GT, even more than the GTS. And as you speed up, I'd say beyond like 20 miles an hour is where you'll start to see GTS have a little bit more oomph than even the GTV. But even like just comparing GT versus GTV, it's hard to argue that you are getting a pretty considerable low end torque boost in that regard.
Okay. It's so we'll call it $500 plus shipping and handling for whatever that is, right? $500 versus to go get a GTS and it's $2,800 or $2,900 or whatever it was we were saying earlier. Massive price difference. So you could see where people that have GTSs or GT, would go, that's a valid option. Now, is that option only through Float Wheel? Is that the only place to get that kit?
That specific kit, yes.
Okay.
The Fungineers does sell what they call the GTFO kit. I honestly don't know what it stands for specifically, but their kit uses their own Thor controller, but it's meant to be used with their own like Superflux motor. So you're swapping both the controller and the motor. I don't know what price that comes out to total. It's probably around $1,000, all things said and done. But with the motor upgrade, you're also getting even more torque, more high speed, and you also don't run into the issues that some people run into with just a normal GTV, which is with that extra low-end torque, you can overheat the hypercore motor like pretty quickly if you're really pushing it. So the Superflux motor has no thermal issues. So in terms of just like trying to upgrade a GT to the most powerful it can be for the cheapest you can, without getting too DIY or anything, that's probably the best like bang for your buck, rather than trying to like sell it and buy a GTS or something like that. Obviously, if you're specifically talking about racing and wanting to focus on ORL and things like that, I know they've said there's going to be big changes to how ORL works this year. I still don't anticipate that you're able to get points if you're not on a future motion board.
Yeah.
So if you're specifically interested in that race circuit and like want to get into the rankings and things like that, then it might be important enough to you to still stay on a future motion board. But now we also have things like the dirt surfer circuit where that's got its own rankings and that's going to be open. So you really just have to weigh where your priorities are.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair way to answer it because it is a bit like, I think for this household, we are future motion. And yes, we realize Vesc lies out there. And yes, it does have some advantages, a major advantage in some areas. And then we also look at the Onewheel and think, in what we do here, it's like, okay, this is for us. We've chosen that's where we're going to be. I'm grateful that, what was it, 3 years ago, the right to repair was the big deal. And we've come through that where you can, for Onewheel products, you can go get most of the things that would break down. You could go and get a new controller, a few other, you can fix it if you need to, where then even that wasn't even an option. So, it's funny when you stay around in a community long enough to see what is the next thing that the community is fighting for. And I do think last year was the hooks, right? It just felt like through the race season, it was about foot hooks or no hooks. Well, that's gone now because Onewheel brought out their own thing. And I just wonder, as Vesc, it seems like it's going to be a little bit more about Vesc in the GTS and see who has what. And, if the GTS is as simple as you're saying, it's a software update to unlock a few more features on the GTS. Is it that quick that it's a firmware Friday and all of a sudden...
Yeah, it's very possible.
Right? Because
I know they've played with some things. I'm sure you remember the excursion race at Dirt Surfers.
I can't
Austin
forget
was
it,
going
Nico.
Pretty fast there.
Yes. Yeah, I do think that was a bit to show, hey, this thing's got more. Because it was open class, you could ride anything, and it was...
Yeah, no, that was no, like, just that was
I
a
didn't
totally
think that.
valid move, and it was sweet.
I was scared to death. Because I was by the statue, and I heard, there's just a sound from boards.
Yeah.
And I was like...
Just the collisions.
Yeah. Of metal on pavement, and I was like, who fell? Is everybody all right? And then I see the footage from the front shot, and it's, holy cow, I don't even know how you get back up on your board and just...
It's insane how we avoided a domino effect.
Oh,
there.
man.
I genuinely don't know how I didn't take out more than... I think there was one other person that fell.
Yeah.
So,
that it wasn't a pileup and
worse.
you weren't severely hurt?
Yeah, not a scratch on me. I got right back up, no pain.
And then,
fine.
you were almost dead last in that race, right? I mean, if I remember right.
I was dead last.
Okay.
And then I think there was 45 or 50 people in it, and I climbed back up to 6th. So
Come on.
That ended up being way more fun of a race than it would have been otherwise, honestly. So I'm happy how that all played out.
It's pretty fun to just keep passing people and be pushed, like you're pushing yourself to get, just to see where you were and where you finished says, again, to my opening words of how fast you are and how you can ride. You prove it every time. It's so much fun to watch you race, and some years you come back and you bleeding from your face, and some years you are dead last and get right up to the front of the pack. You're just very talented on the board, but off the board as we're discussing it. So let's go to the main title of the video.
Oh, that's what people want.
Because and hopefully
they're saying it in the chat.
Yeah, they want the answer. And is Vesc better than Onewheel now? We'll let you answer the question. Then I'm going to answer my own question because it'll just be fun.
But it's still based on opinion. But okay,
it is. But he will not answer just on opinion because he knows.
I can see him being.
I think you'll answer it a little bit more with knowledgeable things, whereas mine's more based on feeling.
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously it's a loaded question. It's really going to depend on what you're looking for, where your priorities lie, and things like that. That said, for a long time, it's been this boat of the main reason to get into Vesc is for right to repair. And that's still a huge incentive that you have full control over every part of your board, whatever. But price was never really a huge thing. But now we are getting to the point where there are multiple options that are comparable to FM boards or even better than FM boards at the same price that you don't have to get too DIY with. Like I said, that Fungineers, the X7 build, it's fully complete, fully assembled, basically the same price as an XR Classic, and it slightly beats out an XR Classic. And then I did a little bit of mental math, and the build I'm putting together with this 134 volt pack, with all the parts, and all the parts I'm getting are like, it's like a complete controller box. You don't have to put together every little part or anything like that.
Okay.
Including all rails, foot pads, things like that. It comes out to the same price as a GTS series. So obviously the big benefits there are Vesc. You have control over it. You get to pick the specific tire, rails, foot pads you want, rather than having to start with their specific rails and pay extra if you want to accessorize on top of that.
Yep.
And then you technically do have like warranties through the specific component manufacturers, like with the controller and battery and everything. But obviously it's not quite the same as the Future Motion experience, where you have a full warranty over the board and you just don't have to worry about as much in that regard. And you don't have to assemble it. It's all ready to go. So at the end of the day, Vesc is always still going to be, to some degree, like, you want to be ready if you have to tinker, even if it's fully assembled, but that's getting easier and easier by the day. It's getting more accessible by the day. At the end of the day, it's really just going to depend on where your priorities lie.
Right.
But there is more reason now than ever to go, like, if you were hesitant about it, to go Vesc rather than Future Motion. Of course.
Yeah,
there's still plenty of reasons for the other way. So
yeah, I do think it is.
We are on an uphill. It is getting better and better.
I think that here's how I see Vesc from a guy that's Future Motion, and I enjoy the experience. I enjoy the warranties that come with it, and things of that nature. I enjoy that component of Future Motion. Absolutely do it. I do think because you're dealing though with a company or a business, progression is not as fast as a collaborative, open-sourced Vesc, right? Because that's open source, and progression can happen very, very fast, and that's what you're seeing. Is progression is happening. Daily's probably extreme, but just rapid fire. Whereas your Future Motion is a business, and they've got to make back the resources they put into the build of that board before they introduce the next progression, I guess, is how I see it. I'm not in their business. I'm just taking what I understand about business.
And right? Of course, there's also extra things that complicate that whole process when it comes to, the legal side of things and, the standards that they have to follow, things like that we don't really have to worry about quite as much on the DIY side of things. So that's naturally going to be a part of either side of things, and that's not bad or good.
It's just part of it.
It just it absolutely, like, to some degrees is an apples to oranges thing of like, there aren't major downsides to either, or the downsides that there are, like, if you see them and you think that's not for you, then the other option is probably for you.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a battle, but it's more like, it's become more accessible to the point that it's kind of a clear-cut decision of if you want one or the other, and both are great options.
I was just thinking about this as you were just said that. It's almost like somebody needs to create a questionnaire that's a neutral party that would for people to decide. Because I get often asked this when we do our group rides here in the summer. You got 60 to 90 people riding, and they're like, oh, should I go Vesc, Scot, or stay Onewheel? And it's not a yes or no question, because it's like, well, answer these 5 questions, and then I can kind of tell you what way you need to go. Are you a tinkerer? If you say no, well, then that's 1 point for Onewheel. Do you?
Yeah.
Right?
No BuzzFeed quiz.
Yeah, so then it allows you to know that you're not going to be disappointed in your purchase. And it also, because that's what the bummer is it's a commitment either way, because you're talking about not pennies here in money. You're talking hundreds, probably more likely $1,500 to $2,000 minimum on these if you really get into it.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be disappointed if you get into something that you're like, oh, I didn't know that it wasn't as user friendly, or I didn't know that I wouldn't have the power, or whatever it is. So if you had this little questionnaire you just answered, then it gives you, then you're more likely to like Future Motion, or you're more likely to be and then you can make your decision, because it's just too hard because it is a personal opinion, it almost feels like. Now, I think the danger is that once you make your decision, you're forever anti the other side, which we are clearly not here. But that's what it feels like. Oh, if you choose to be Vesc, you hate Future Motion, or if you right? Isn't that what it feels like at times?
I think, I mean, with all of this progression has happened just a little bit too close to the election, that I think some people take that energy and carry it over.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
Ways.
Yeah, that is fair.
But,
yeah.
At the end of the day, like, if you're looking for, like, I've said this millions of times and it'll never change. If you're looking for an out of the box board that's like as like standardized and reliable as possible, you don't want to think about it. You just want the Onewheel experience. You want to ride. Obviously, Future Motion is going to be the way to go, especially now that they have like for the longest time, there's been like asterisks to that, because I wouldn't consider a stock GT with like the tire that they used to have on there to be the ideal Onewheel experience, but now they have basically the XR Classic and the GTS series are both wonderful out of box boards. I'm still not the biggest fan of the base GTS having a 6.5-inch rim, but that's a whole nother conversation. But the XR Classic especially is a really great out-of-box board for what it is, honestly. If that's the experience you're looking for, that's the best way to get it.
Yep. I do think that the introduction or reintroduction of the 6-inch for the GTS was a smart move, and it's an option for everybody to put on their board. But so we're obviously we can't talk all day with you, and I don't know all the questions asked about with Vesc. So are there things we're leaving out in this conversation that people would be asking that it's like, oh, let me give this thought for a Vesc, or anything else I didn't know to ask you in the conversation? Because I don't want you to log off going, oh, we didn't talk about this, and this. As we wrap up today, is there a few other notes that you want to say? Like we were talking earlier, that even the software that you use for Vesc has recently been updated, and it's more user-friendly than beforehand. You don't have to have so many separate apps to control different things. So with that, I'll leave you kind of wrap it up in a cute little bow, this conversation of the Vesc conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try not to repeat myself. Obviously, at the end of the day, the board you get is going to depend on where your priorities lie. And it's gotten to the point that it's less about, like, it used to be at some point you have to be a tinkerer to get Vesc, but that barrier of entry has been lowering more and more. It's more accessible now than ever, especially in the next couple of months. It's going to continue to get more and more accessible. So there's other aspects of Vesc that if those are important to you, but you're not quite as much of a tinker, it might still be worth it. I see people talking in the chat about safety. There's a lot of, like, even if you're not a racer, you don't care about high performance or anything like that, you just want a safe board to ride. There's a lot to be said about the safety aspects of Vesc, with having proper duty cycle warnings and things like that are actually warning when you're at like a certain amount of like headroom left in your board's power. Let's say like 75% headroom. Rather than something like the Onewheel from Future Motion, which is a speed base. They just tell you if you're going 20 miles an hour or 25 miles an hour. So from a safety perspective, there's definitely things to be said about Vesc in that regard. But I don't know. In general, I think we covered a lot of it, and it really just depends on your priorities. Obviously, it's a complex topic. We can't cover everything here. But if that barrier of entry and like the accessibility of it was your holdup to get into Vesc, I'd say start doing a little digging, ask the questions you want in the Vesc groups, and maybe start considering it.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you got to do your research on all of it. What I have found, though, on the question of Vesc in Onewheel, I would, and correct me if I'm assuming wrong here, Nico, that most of the people riding Vesc are migrating from starting on a Onewheel and going. It's not very often, is it? I've rode nothing. I'm going straight to Vesc. Is that a fairly true statement, or do you think I'm off on that? That it is? No, there's a lot of people jumping on Vesc that have never rode either.
I mean, for the most part, that's fairly true. A big part of that is not because of Vesc being intimidating, but rather a lot of the people coming to the sport just learn it through Onewheel. Like they're the ones that are a company with a marketing department and things like that.
Right.
So that's usually their first exposure to it. But I won't lie, I have seen a decent number of people in recent months that like the float wheel is their first board, or the Fungineers X7 is their first board, or they found a broken used GT and immediately GTV'd it, and that's their first board. Things like that. Those cases are growing more and more. Obviously, Onewheel is always gonna be like the more popular one, and the more like the one that's more in the limelight, just because marketing. But it's still like Vesc is at a point that you can definitely. I don't know if I'd still advise it personally, but it's absolutely possible for like a Vesc board to be your first board, and you still have like a wonderful experience.
It would be a different onboarding experience, right?
Yes.
That's just at the end of the day. Yes, you can do it. It'd just be different, so. Especially if it's your first board, I would try. I'm trying to put myself when I got my Onewheel in 2015. What I would feel like if I had to learn the software a little bit to set it all up and stuff, versus I just connect the app to my board, charge it, and now I got to learn to ride, right? Because now you're doing two big things: learning the technical side plus the riding side. With Onewheel, it is
though. I will say again, we're at least once this app releases and it gets to the point that I want it to, with like an upcoming update for it, we're basically at a point that if you don't care about the technical side of things, outside of maybe some certain situations, like for the most part, most people would be able to just pick the parts they have with their board, or even pick that they have like a certain complete setup.
Yep.
And they don't have to worry about the technical side of things.
That sets it up. I got to say, Nico.
Them. So that's what we're working towards.
Yeah. And I applaud that. When you were showing that, I didn't probably give enough credit when that is slick. That is, I mean, how it just can't make it easier. I think the only thing you have to do on that app is understand what you're reading. Like you need to know some of the components in your board, right? And you just select, and then it sets it up. That's genius. That to me makes it go, oh, that's way simpler than previous. So I applaud that and love that that effort is being made for Vesc. And what I can say with Vesc, I appreciate Vesc existing, because I do think if Vesc wasn't around, nor would the GTS be around. It might be coming out sooner than later, but it wouldn't be hitting market. I think what forced it to hit market so fast was there was a massive gap when the GTS hit the market from Vesc in the X or the GT at that point, right? Remember how big that was? Huge.
Absolutely. I mean, my boards that I like when we first started racing on Vesc, and this was end of 2022, my board then is basically the same spec board I've been racing up till now, until I'm finally doing this higher voltage board that I'm working on right now. But it's been like the board I was riding back then is still like very much viable.
Right.
So that was the thing for sure.
Yeah. And
that's the wonderful thing about, I mean, that's why we need competition in this space.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate that the patents are how they are, that we can't really have proper competition. But right now, this is the best way we can get that.
Yeah.
So that's why I've always been about pushing for it. And it's clearly, I mean, it's been beneficial, and it's pushed Future Motion to make a better product. in the last year, 2 years, especially. So
yeah, I agree with that. And I do think competition breeds progression in a faster speed. So I think that's wonderful. And thank you for your time today, Nico. I know you're a busy man.
for
You
sure.
just showed what you're busy doing. And thank you for making the community better and just you being a quality human being, but making some really fun products that make people look, oh, I want to try that tire. I got it. It's just really great. The Float Life team, wonderful out there in California, producing stuff like sitting on my desk, this tire and the rim. Excited to get that on and excited to see what you guys are going to release in the next coming months as the race season is starting. And so thank you again, Nico, for your time today. And we'll have you back
Absolutely.
on. We looked the last time we had you on was a year ago. And then we looked before that, and it was a year ago. So we tend to have you on pre-race season. And then what happens is race season happens, and you're traveling. I mean, I don't know if you're traveling like you did last year, where you're just driving your car to all these races.
Well, last year I got injured, so that Dirt Surfers excursion race was actually the last race that I've done. It's been a minute.
Oh, yeah. And then you got, I wouldn't say full-on injured in Windman, but you got tweaked.
I like Windman was just at the perfect time that I could somewhat safely finally get back on my board and do some riskier stuff and things like that. But I still hurt myself during practice enough that I was like, it's not worth my recovery suffering to actually put a time down on race day when I know I'm still not recovered enough to win this thing.
Right.
So I took that race day off. But those practice days were still really fun.
Yeah, the videos that you showed of one of your falls into the rock was wild.
That was
the fact you walked away from it, right?
I laid there for a bit,
but you still walked away. You still walked away, which is impressive. So hopefully you get out to all of the different races again. I know when you're traveling like you were doing, that's a lot on the body, and so.
Yeah, that Dirt Surfers Enduro Series is my top priority this year.
That looks fun, doesn't it? Or sounds fun? Oh, man.
Absolutely. Just having another, I stopped racing on Future Motion boards the moment they came out with the ranking system. There was one race I did that I was part of that ranking system, I think. And I didn't do well in that race. So this is going to be the first time I've actually have the chance to be a part of something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it.
But that ranking system came out, but it was the rise of Vesc. That was the year that there were a lot of people switching from. It wasn't the battle that we see today where Vesc and Onewheel. At that point, it was people deciding, no, this will be my season that I do go Vesc. And it was right after that first race that you earned points, and then it was like, I'm going Vesc from there on out, or so, around there. Am I correct on that when I remember the history?
Pretty much, yeah. That was 2022. Really, no one was switching to Vesc for any kind of advantage or anything like that. That was very much on the forefront of things. And then once things got dialed and it was feeling a lot better, and we started actually racing them more competitively in 2023, that's when the people started flooding in.
Yeah. I think this year's going to be interesting as I try to think of narratives that would sell a race season. I do think it's going to come down to solely Vesc versus Onewheel this year. And again, when I say that,
I think.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think there's every race director is going to handle things differently, obviously. But it seems to me like a lot of race directors are looking to open things up more.
Yep.
Especially for the head-to-head races, because last year, I think the enduros allowed Vesc without a remote into the pro class, and you just wouldn't be ranked. But all the head-to-head races, if you're on Vesc at all, even without a remote, you still couldn't race in the pro head-to-heads with everyone else. So it sounds like that might change for a few races. It sounds like things will open up a bit more. So we'll see. We'll see how things go. We'll see if I get more chances to race against some of the pros.
Yeah, that'll be fun to see. At least we can speak of the Dirt Surfers circuit. You'll be able to, and that'll be fun to see. just who comes out on top. Again, we got to stress this. It is the rider on the board. It's not, hey, great, you have the full decked out board. Doesn't mean you're going to be able to do jack
Absolutely.
squat with
Luke
it.
just won Winman on a GTS with plenty of other people on kitted out boards. So it's absolutely like, if you look at all the race results, it's basically like there really hasn't been definitive proof in race results specifically that the board has a major advantage. It really comes down to rider for like 90% of that.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. As we're talking here, this is old school movie, but you remember the very first Fast and Furious, and the Paul Walker character shows up in fully decked out car, like everything, right? And he's like, I'm going to beat Vin Diesel's character, and he's going, and then he blows his car up and loses. And it's like, that's exactly great. You
Totally.
show up with a full out decked out board, but you don't know how to ride it. It doesn't really matter what you got under the hood. And so
you got to know what you got to know what's under your feet, especially the speeds we're racing at nowadays.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you guys are riding crazy. So Nico, thank you for your time. Thank you. Say thank you to your team as we've taken you away from getting stuff done there in the shop.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on. Pleasure
yeah,
as
man.
always.
We'll have you back on to continue the conversation. Be safe out there, and we'll talk with you later. Okay, Nico?
Sounds good. See you
All right,
soon.
bye, man. That is a good human being right there. Love that guy. Good Midwest guy. He has a passion for the sport and passion for people. I can't say enough good things about him. Some housekeeping things. One, no matter what you think about it, Onewheel is doing their trade-in or trade-up program again, where you can send in any of your Onewheel for hard-earned credit towards any of their boards. You can trade in a pint, you can trade in a GT, you can XR, a pint X, all of those things, and get credit towards different boards, which is phenomenal. I did see today, and you almost thought it was an early April Fool's joke, that you can also walk into their shop and turn in an electric skateboard, an EUC, and a few other things. You'll have to look up the details to this to get credit towards a Onewheel, which is spectacular. So maybe you have some boards sitting around, you're like, hey, I got, like me over here, if you go to the wide shop, I have two boards over here that I have strongly considered turning in. It's an XR, and it is my very first pint. Now, nostalgically, I have really wanted to reserve keeping those there because I just like that. But there's, man, right there, if I was to go get a GTS, if I'm doing the math right, $800 for the XR and $500 towards a GTS right there. So they're making it easy to enter their boards and get right on in riding. And so look forward to that, to hear some of your stories, how you get into a new upgraded scenario. You need to go to their website and check out all those different things. The other website you got to check out again is thefloatlife.com. Go check it out. See what they have in stock. Maybe you want the Pioneer 5-inch tire. Maybe you want the 6.5 Pioneer tire. We love that one. It's on so many boards. The Thundercat tire is in there. Another good, beefy, chunky tire that eats up trails. Those are available on their website. Go give it a look. You're going to have to do what I have to do some of those times, is you just got to sometimes check every morning. Did they get a new shipment in? Is there only 2 available of these? Oh, I'm going to snag it. And so as of when I ordered, there were a lot of 5-inch N52 available. Not sure if they still are. Go to www.thefloatlife.com to check out all of those things. And there's heaps more we want to talk about. We've run out of time. It was a great conversation about Vesc. Again, do your own research. Where do you fall? Me in this house, we know where we fall. It is Future Motion. We enjoy their boards, and we really like how they ride. And so, as Legend, we were talking about that drop-in kit. We're figuring out how to get GTS under his foot, Epic's feet, so that they can progress this year. They might have to go plow some snow over the next few days. They might have to hire out and cut people's hair, whatever they got to do to get the hard-earned greens to get a GTS. How do you feel about that, Legend? Cutting people's hair?
Worth it.
Okay. You were awfully quiet today. You weren't really asking any questions. Did you not know what to do?
This is gonna be told. I don't entertain. Vesc.
Entertain? You're anti-Vesc all the way.
I don't want to be, but I just.
Why?
Because I'm not. If I have a goal to go to ORL, I'm not worried about Vesc.
Now, what if Onewheel in ORL came out this year and said, "Hey, Vescs will allow you to compete and earn points, but when you get to our race, you still have to ride the GTS." Would that change it?
No.
Okay.
I would still stick with.
You're just drawing the line.
Yeah.
Wow, you're even more stubborn than me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not.
But is that because right now you need a GTS, and so you're like, for me to get a Vesc doesn't help my situation?
Yeah, and that hearing what Nico said about the GTV kit, it's like, so it doesn't change speed. Why I don't need it, because that's where I'm at right now with the GT. Like I'm some points in the trails I'm maxing out the GT and can't get past that.
Yeah, you're at haptic buzz.
Yeah, so it's like it's not drawing the line of my skill. It's just I'm at the board limit now.
At this moment.
Yeah.
So if you got a GT, you can upgrade your skills. You can unlock some things.
Yeah.
But and I think what you're saying, so any of those watching, you're not maxing out you still have skills to learn, like being able to just bank better on switchbacks and things of that nature. But when you get to the straightaways, you are haptic buzzing.
Yeah, I can't, I can already think about so many spots at dirt surfer trails. It's like I could, if I had a GTS, I could just fly to the spot. But with the GT, I'm like, I'm stuck at the mercy of what my board wants to do. So it's really like the GTV kit doesn't help me, and it gives torque, yes, but I have a lot of torque with the GTS hub that we've added to my GT, so I don't really see a benefit in a GTV kit.
Yeah, I got that. That's a fair statement from you. I can appreciate your candor there. We are going to reach out on the topic of Vesc to, I think, is it Dadu?
Surf Dado?
Yeah, Dado. Thank you. We're going to reach out to him and have him on for those that want to continue the conversation in the Vesc in the next coming weeks. We'll have him on because I know he's one of the big contributors. I think a year ago we had him on with Austin Silva. And so stay tuned to this channel for those podcasts that will be coming down the chute. We're also going to try to connect with the race coordinators for a couple of these races that are happening. We have the Vegas races happening in the March month. You have Lemonade Float Fest happening in April, and so we want to make sure we get to them, see what we can expect in their racing's event over the next few months. Other than that, subscribe to the YouTube channel as we drop Onewheel content all the time. We will make a review on this setup on our Onewheels to speak knowledgeably on the N52 magnets in the 5-inch hub. Is it worth the upgrade from N48s or N42s? Now that we have all three of the magnets, we can speak knowledgeably on them. Okay, everybody, have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there. And until the next one, we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye, everyone.